Hello and welcome to this SANS Leadership Workshop, CEO Secrets of the Top 1%, a 4-step game plan to create healthy high performance in any business environment. My name is Ben Sands. I am so glad you're here. I know how busy you are, so let's dive right in. I created this masterclass for business leaders, folks with the titles President, CEO, SVP, VP, Director. But in reality, it's really for any person responsible for leading a team and delivering results. Doesn't matter how big or small your business is, you're going to get a ton of value out of the next 45 minutes. As business leaders, we all aspire to lead a company that we love, and that is a company that is loved by those who work with and for it. That's my ambition here today, is to share with you a very simple process, a very simple game plan to help you to create that precise type of organization. I call it a top 1% organization. And that's where I want to start, is just to better understand what you would describe as a top 1% organization. And here's the idea that I want to kick things off with. It's a simple question, right? When you hear that term, top 1%, what are the first organizations that come to mind? What are the first businesses or companies, leaders even, that come to mind? Who in your mind is in that top 1%? Take a second right now. Just jot a name or two down. Got it? All right. Well, I give this talk to lots and lots of organizations every year. And I've asked this question to literally thousands of leaders like yourself. Here's a snapshot of some of the organizations that come up routinely. Organizations like Google, Disney, Berkshire Hathaway, Apple, Chick-fil-A, Microsoft. Right? Now, these are all relatively famous organizations. And in any given audience, there's a number of organizations that I've never heard of, but organizations that in some way, shape, or form embody the level of performance, the value creation that is most important to that executive that's identified them. So as it relates to this exercise, I don't care exactly who your organization is, right? But I just want to ask a follow-up question. What is it about that organization that makes it top 1% in your eyes? Obviously, many of these organizations on this screen make a lot of money, right? And that might be the measure by which you establish top 1%. But look at a company like Patagonia. They don't make nearly as much money as Walmart or Disney or Google. And yet, many organizations, look at the way the founder and CEO leads that organization, the values implicit in that organization, right, as indicative of top 1% status. So again, I want to know what makes your list of top 1%. Now that you've got this, got a couple of companies in mind that reflect that top 1% status. Right? Now I want you to think about your organization. And I want you to think about your organization on a scale of 1 to 10. If 10 represents Patagonia, Google, Walmart, right, a top 1% organization on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your organization today on that journey of becoming a top 1% organization? Are you at a 2, just getting started? Are you at an 8 or 9, getting really, really close, just looking for the final few pieces of the puzzle? The number honestly doesn't matter at all to me, but I just want you to have a number in mind. Once we understand where we're starting from, we can ask the second or the next question in this process, which is very simply, what's holding you back? So if you identified your organization as a 3, my question is not what's holding you back from 10, but what's holding you back from 4? Right? If you're at 5, what's holding you back from 6? If you're at 7 today, what's holding you, your team, your organization, your business back from getting to 8? What's holding you back from getting to your next level of healthy high performance? Again, just take a second, pause this training if you need to, and just start to put together a list of the roadblocks, the obstacles that are getting between you and your organization and its next level of health and performance, its next level of success. Now, again, I've asked this question in rooms all over the world, and here's just a real simple sampling of some of the roadblocks, obstacles holding other teams back from getting to their next level of success. A lack of focus, a lack of or poor communication, not enough accountability, not enough resources, a cruddy product. We don't have enough patience. We're always changing our mind or moving the goalposts. In addition, we don't have the right people yet, right? Our vision is murky. It's not clear where we're going, and that relates to our strategy. We don't have the right strategy. Strategy is not good enough. The economy, right? Competitors, right? So much competition out there, and a lack of experience. Again, this is a very small, short list of things that get in our way, that get in the way of other organizations from getting to their next level of success. My question for you is, do you recognize any of these issues? Are any of these issues similar to what you wrote down? Chances are they are. And what I've observed over the course of my travels and my work is that there are basically four main categories of roadblock or obstacle that hold most organizations back. And depending on the organization, depending on the team, it may be one of these things, but I often find that it's almost always all four, or at least a little bit of all four of these things. So let me click you through what these are real quick. Number one, the first roadblock is a lack of clarity. As a team, as an organization, as a business, we don't know what we want or why we want it. Or there might even be a lack of clarity on how quickly, right, how much time we have to achieve it. That's issue number one, a lack of clarity. Issue number two, roadblock number two, a lack of knowledge. We're just not sure what to do or how to do it. We're trying things and they're not working. We know we want to go from point A to point B, but we're not quite sure how to get to point B yet. Number three, an issue that's often overlooked and really underappreciated is our mindset. The way I describe this is that as an organization, even individuals or leaders within the organization, we don't believe that we can be a top 1% company. We don't believe that we want or can do what we need to do in order to get to that next level. And then the fourth thing, again, often underappreciated and overlooked, is what I refer to as the whirlwind. And I got this term from the Covey Corporation in their great book, The Four Disciplines of Execution. They define the whirlwind as the massive amount of time and energy required to simply live our lives day to day. Every single day, there's something new, some new issue, emergency, distraction coming our way. And it's not always the bad stuff like a customer complaint or issue that we have to respond to immediately. It's also the good stuff. It's the kids' school play. It's the anniversary. That's all part of the whirlwind. It is defined by urgency. And for many organizations, and certainly the leaders of those organizations, when it comes to getting to that next level, we have to start more effectively differentiating between the urgent and the truly important. I like to say when urgency and importance clash, urgency wins every time. And that's why the whirlwind can be such a challenge and can be so problematic for so many organizations. So, four common roadblocks holding back most organizations from getting to their next level of success. Question for you. Which of these roadblocks is holding your team, your organization back from getting to its next level of success? Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about how all of these issues manifest, but also how we can overcome them. And I'm going to leverage some ideas that I have gleaned from working with these top 1% organizations and leaders around the world. Now, as I mentioned at the start of our session, my name is Ben Sands. I'm an executive coach, and I'm the founder of Sands Leadership. I am personally obsessed with efficiency. I love knowing how things work. I love discovering new, smart ideas and sharing those ideas because I hate wasting time, energy, and resources. And I see a lot of that happening in most organizations today. So what I've done is I've collected a set of very specific principles that seem to differentiate and define those organizations that are not only able to achieve top 1% status, but also to sustain it. And in this session, I want to walk you through what those are. I think you're going to be surprised by many of these ideas. They're both smart, but they're also not obvious. Now, I use the term secret because it's a little bit provocative and kind of fun. But what I hope you'll see is this isn't a secret. This is kind of common sense. And yet, oftentimes we need to be reminded far more often than we need to be taught. So I think you'll like all of these ideas, and I'm excited to know by the end of this session which of these ideas resonate most with you. All right, so let's begin. Secret number one. What do these top 1% CEOs do differently than everybody else? The first secret is that they balance the equation. Of course, you may be wondering, what equation are you talking about, Ben? And I will share that with you in just a moment. But first, a quick story. Before I started Sands Leadership, I was a management consultant. I was working with some folks from McKinsey, and we were traveling around the world setting up and restructuring international joint ventures. Now, the actual work doesn't really matter, but the important part of this story is that I was on airplanes all the time. And it just so happened that during this period of my life, I met my future wife, Sarah. And we started dating. We decided to get engaged. And as part of the pre-marriage planning process, we went to meet with the priest that was going to marry us. And he sat us down, and he was a really neat guy. And he asked us a whole bunch of questions. And then he asked me one particular question that in many ways changed my life forever. He said, Ben, at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want to be an world-class international management consultant, or do you want to be a world-class husband? And I have to admit that that question hit me right between the eyes. I was really affected by that question, and I thought about it. And ultimately, I decided, right, I am going to be a world-class husband. And so I made the decision. I was so excited. I came home that evening, and I said to Sarah, I said, honey, good news. I am going all in on being a world-class husband. And much to my surprise, Sarah looked at me and said, are you nuts? And of course, I should have seen this coming. But at the time, I wasn't yet familiar with the equation that I'm talking about in this first secret. The equation that I'm talking about is called the happiness equation. And it can be summarized very simply. We are happy when R equals E. Maybe you want to try to guess at what R and E stand for. We are happy when R equals E. We're happy when our reality is consistent or equal to our expectations. And while Sarah absolutely wanted me to be a world-class husband, her expectation was that I could be a world-class husband while maintaining a very healthy and comfortable salary and income level. The leaders of top 1% organizations understand that this equation is the foundation of every healthy, high-performing team, and that this equation needs to be constantly managed, balanced, and rebalanced over time. What I found is that when leaders are upset or frustrated about something that's happening in their organization, the first question I always ask is, what were your expectations in that situation or in that moment? And 50% of the leaders that I speak with can't quite clarify that expectation. And if the leader, in fact, does or did have an expectation, my follow-up question is, have you ever shared that expectation? Did you share that expectation with the person that is currently upsetting you? And more often than not, I get a sheepish, well, no. What they tell me is that, well, that person just should have understood, should have known what my expectation was. And I see this all the time, right? Leaders constantly make the mistake of assuming that their expectations are consistent with the expectations of others, that people just know what they're thinking and feeling. And the fact is, that's just not the case. The secret of the top 1% leaders is that they do two things really, really well. Number one, they're very clear about what their expectations are. They take time proactively to define and clarify what does success look like in this situation. And then two, they proactively share those expectations with those who need to know. This is really what people are getting at when they talk about, I want to improve communication across the company. What they're really talking about is I want to get better at setting and clarifying and aligning around expectations. So top 1% organizations and top 1% leaders do a great job of balancing the equation. That is secret number one. Secret number two, top 1% leaders put the A in team. This is the Brooklyn Nets of the U.S. National Basketball Association. The three men pictured here are three of the very best players in the entire NBA. And a couple years ago, in a sort of headline-grabbing move, the Brooklyn Nets got all of these three players to come and commit to playing together. And very quickly, people identified the Nets as the new frontrunners to win the championship. Well, as it turns out, the Nets did not win the championship. In fact, they had a very uninspired season, ultimately getting swept in the first round of the playoffs. Very much not meeting the expectations of both the owner and the rest of the league. And when we looked at the Nets, I thought it was just a great illustration of a very simple truth, something that we often need to be reminded of as leaders aspiring to create top 1% organizations. And that truth is this: that there's a difference between a team of A players and an A team. There's a difference between a team of A players and an A team. So often I see leaders, trying to recruit A players, and I get it, right? We all want A players, but A players are not enough. And I use, in contrast, to the Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the team that actually did win this championship. And yes, they've got some A players, right? Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green. These are some of the best players in the NBA. But they also had a number of unknown players who all stepped up in meaningful ways. And it just reinforces the idea that an A team is not a team of A players, but instead an aligned team. Alignment is the secret to creating and sustaining top 1% status. And what I've discovered is that in most organizations, misalignment is rampant. And misalignment at some very foundational levels of understanding of the business. I do a short health and alignment assessment of every organization with whom I work. And the data was frankly alarming. Let me show you just a little bit of the data that I collect using an example of one specific business unit. This is a business unit of a publicly traded company. So in this first question, I like to ask, do you know what your KPIs are, right? Key performance indicators, what I define as the 5 to 10 most important metrics that best describe the performance of our team. Now, this is another fancy way of asking, do you know what you get paid to do? That's another way of looking at this question. Your KPIs are essentially the measures by which your performance should be evaluated, right? So in other words, this is what you get paid to do. And I asked every team member to assess the truth of this statement from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And here's how it played out. A great majority, 68% of the employees don't really know what they're getting paid to do. They don't know what the KPIs of the team are, right? And that's critical. They may know revenue and profitability or things like that, right? But within the actual team, what are the measures or metrics that best describe the performance of our group, right? Of our organization? Nearly 70% don't really know what they're getting paid to do. There's more. Do you have specific measurable 90-day goals? 48%, nearly half, don't have clear goals. But here's what's really surprising, right? Today in our world, we talk a lot about burnout, overwhelm, and exhaustion, sort of a epidemic of burnout in organizations, right? You see these headlines. Here's what I found, is that there is a clear correlation between a lack of clarity and alignment and this manifestation of burnout, overwhelm, and exhaustion. Look at the data. 52% have, in fact, felt overwhelmed, exhausted, or burned out. How interesting is that? Nearly the same number of folks that don't have clear goals are feeling overwhelm, exhaustion, and burnout. Now you may say, well, Ben, maybe that's because the 50% that do have goals are feeling so stressed to try and meet those goals. And that may be a fair assumption. But what I've discovered is that that's not the case. The people who have clarity, the people who know what success looks like, who know where the finish line exists, are able to allocate time, energy, and resources in a more intentional and thoughtful way to get there. It's the people that don't know where the goal line is, that don't have a clear definition of success. Their response to that lack of clarity, that ambiguity, is just to work their tails off, to do everything, to not make sure that no balls get dropped because they're never quite sure what matters most and what matters least. This is a massive issue that needs to be addressed. And this is the issue that top 1% companies address very, very quickly. And really, they get at the root cause. And what I've discovered is the root cause of this issue is actually something even more fundamental, that most teams are not speaking the same language when it comes to strategy. Just the terms themselves, vision, values, mission, goals, KPIs, OKRs, these are terms that get thrown around in every organization that I work with and for. And what I've discovered is that most of the men and women in these organizations, even at the senior leadership level, don't have a common definition of these terms, don't really know what these words mean. And of course, right, we've grown up in our businesses. You went to business school. We don't question whether a senior leader understands what vision means or what goals are, what an OKR is and how to implement it. We don't question that because we just assume. And yet what I've discovered is that most leaders are not fully aligned even on the definitions of these terms, much less the actual number or description of that particular term for that organization. This is a massive problem. As a leader aspiring to get to that top 1% level, you've got to put the A back in team. An A team is an aligned team. And again, going back to that happiness equation, the more alignment we have, the more intentionally we work to maintain that alignment, the easier it is to maintain that healthy high performance in any business environment. Right? So secret number 2 of top 1% leaders is that they put the A in team. All right. So that's secret number 2. Secret number 3. The best leaders, the best organizations, these top 1% companies make it easier. They make it easier. Gosh, what if we could make work easier? Well, I want to suggest that we can. And that's exactly what the best organizations in the world do. And I want to highlight this or bring this to light with a simple story of the chicken sandwich wars. On the left here, we have Popeyes, Louisiana Kitchen, and on the right, Chick-fil-A. Now, if you're not from the U.S., a couple years ago, this became a real fun little headline. But it was also, I think, really important and illustrative of why some organizations perform really, really well over time and how others get distracted. So what am I talking about here? On the left, Popeyes, this is a fast food franchise that came out with this new chicken sandwich. And by all accounts, the Popeyes chicken sandwich was superior to the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. In fact, there was all sorts of fun headlines signaling that, the new, king of chicken sandwiches had arrived. And Chick-fil-A had been around for a long time. That chicken sandwich literally had not changed in about 40 years. So it's got a lot of attention. People were lining up around the block to get Popeyes chicken sandwiches. And yet, if I were to ask you, would you rather own a Popeyes franchise with their superior chicken sandwich, or would you rather own a Chick-fil-A franchise? Those who know are going to take Chick-fil-A every time. And here's why. This is a chart illustrating profitability for 3 different chicken franchises, showing their performance over the last 10 years. Look at the trajectory of Chick-fil-A. They have dominated both Popeyes and KFC, and Popeyes in particular because, we've just determined that Popeyes has a superior product. But they've dominated. Chick-fil-A has dominated, not because they have this superior product, but Chick-fil-A has superior systems. It's a better run business. And it reminds me of this idea from author James Clear, who writes, "Great teams don't rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems." Top 1% organizations have great systems. And these great systems all seem to have very common characteristics. I use the acronym EASI, EASI, to describe the common characteristics of these systems. Let me walk you through the 4 distinctive traits. Number 1, E, stands for efficient. Right? These systems focus on reducing wasted time, energy, and resources. They do that oftentimes by learning from experience. Number 2, they are agile. They have systems that respond quickly to changing market and business conditions. You can't just set a goal or a strategy and forget it. It has to be consistently reviewed, pressure tested, and adapted to meet changing market and business conditions. Great top 1% companies have baked this agility into the way that they run the business. 3, S, stands for sustainable. These operating systems are designed to win the long game, and they focus on both performance and health. And then finally, they are innovative. These systems bake innovation and creativity into the way that the business is run, right? They're able to quickly identify big opportunities and solve hard problems. Every organization, including yours, has an operating system, a way that you run the business. What I've discovered is that the top 1% companies, these companies that are able to get to that next level of success and performance, really spend a great deal of time on improving that operating system, the way that this team or organization runs. And the easiest ways to create leverage, to create improvement, are to focus on these 4 common characteristics. Now, there's a whole way of doing that. I'm not going to get into that detail here, but you'll see some very specific elements in any given top team operating system. I like to describe it though as sort of like the hard way and the easy way, right? And see if see where you recognize your organization, right? Which of these characteristics best defines your organization. So the hard way of running a business, you've got ambiguous 5 to 10 year vision statements, lots of emotion, but not much detail in those vision statements. The easier way is to have a very specific 3-year vision with a clear and compelling definition of success. As we talked about before, ambiguity, misunderstanding kills progress, right? Destroys confidence and culture, right? Great companies are very specific. And in fact, I highlight a 3-year vision because I think it's a lot easier to predict what's going to happen in 3 years than even 5 years. And forget about 10 years. A 10-year vision statement is completely worthless given the fact that so much can change in such a short amount of time in the world that we live in today. The hard way to run the business is to set your goals annually and review them quarterly. The easier way, set those goals quarterly and review them weekly. Right? This just ensures that we don't get off track, or we very quickly, if we get off track, can get back on track. Too often, CEOs lament the fact that at the end of the quarter, heaven forbid, the end of the year, they say, "Gosh, what happened?" And when you interview the team members, they said, "Yeah, these goals were out of date or out of touch within the first 3 months of the year." Another example of a hard way to run the business is that you expect your individuals, your A-team players, right, to figure things out. You embrace what I call deep end of the pool development, which is essentially hire somebody that you believe to be smart, give them an ambitious or audacious set of goals or objectives and say, "Hey, go," right? I empower you to go figure it out. That's the hard way to run a business. The easier way, that your teams are expected to figure it out, right? Same idea, right? We're going to empower you, right? But not as an individual, but as a team. And instead of just kind of throwing you into the deep end and saying, "Hey, we'll see you in 3 months," you support these teams with consistent coaching and training. Nobody has all the answers, and everybody can benefit from processing hard problems together and then getting some external support, coaching, and training to help them move more quickly or identify more quickly best practices, new ideas, or the path forward. The hard way to run a business, last one, lots of low-value meetings to share and gather information. The easier way to run a business, a small number of high-value meetings to make decisions and solve problems. Right? How valuable are your meetings today? Chances are not very valuable. Right? I know only because I work with so many organizations that are doing their best, right, to bring people together, to create alignment, to communicate clearly, and they do it in meetings. And of course, that's just not the right use of a meeting. The top 1% companies don't use meeting time, don't use that valuable resource in that way. They use it to move the business forward, to solve hard problems, to address issues, to make decisions. So if we were to summarize sort of the guiding philosophy the hard way, we're going to work hard, hold yourself accountable, and hope things go as expected. Right? If not, we're going to do better next year. The summary of the easier way: we work hard, we hold each other accountable. We expect change. We expect things not to go as expected, and then we measure and make it better immediately. Which of these two charts, the red or the blue, the hard way or the easier way, best describes your organization today? If your answer is the red, I got good news for you. These are all solvable problems. And again, we can lean or stand on the shoulders of the giants ahead of us, right? Stand on the shoulders of these top 1% companies to very quickly and easily identify ways in which we can improve the way your business is run, way we can upgrade your operating system. So that's secret number 3. They make it easier. And last but not least, secret number 4, they take it personally. This is a guy named Jonathan Frostick. Jonathan Frostick took a picture of himself lying in a hospital bed. And the backstory here is that Jonathan, while at work, had a heart attack. And as he was sitting in his hospital bed, he began to reflect on his worldview during and after the heart attack. And here's what he wrote. He said, his immediate thoughts post-heart attack were, I need to meet with my manager. This isn't convenient. Shoot, have I updated my will? And tragically, I hope my wife doesn't find me this way. Fortunately, he recovers. And so now he's sitting in his hospital bed thinking about this after the fact, during his recovery. And he had one sort of overriding idea that came top of mind. I'm changing my approach to work. Now, this sort of makes sense. It's almost cliche. A person has this tragic event or hospitalization and decides he's going to change his life. What really stood out, and I appreciated his generosity in sharing this, but what really stood out to me was not necessarily Frostick's story, it was the response to it. See this number on the bottom? Nearly 300,000 people clicked like or love or support or whatever to Frostic's post here. 300,000 people. And the way I looked at that is that that's 300,000 people saying, you're right. Thanks for sharing that. I may need to do the same thing. There's this very simple question that I'd like to ask, and that's important for you as a leader of a top 1% company or aspiring to be a top 1% company ask. And that is, what is the greatest driver of performance at work? My guess is that you spend a lot of time thinking about, what am I going to pay people, and what kind of benefits do we need to be providing, and how do I personally become a better manager, better coach, better leader to support my team. But in reality, the greatest driver of performance at work is personal performance habits. It doesn't matter the company that Frostic was working for. His manager has there's nothing that he or she could do to prevent that heart attack. The only person who could prevent Frostic from having his heart attack was Frostic. We spend so much time thinking about how to optimize performance management within the office. But in so many ways, the factors that are having the greatest impact on performance are happening outside the four walls of work. No perfect strategy or culture can overcome bad personal performance habits. You can have the perfect company, the perfect product, the perfect workplace culture, free coffee, lunch, nap pods, what have you. But if the members of your team are going home and doing things that don't serve them, that undermine personal health and well-being, you can't account for that through organizational design. Top 1% companies recognize the inherent connection between what happens at work and what's happening outside of work, and that you have to focus on both domains if you want to create the kind of healthy, high-performing culture that we all aspire to. So what I've identified is 5 very specific high-performance habits that as a leader, if you can build these first within yourself, right? Number 1, this is about you upgrading your own personal operating system, but also to reinforce and coach your team to improve these themselves. You're going to experience a sea change in performance across the organization. So here they are. Number 1, be intentional. What does that mean? It means that we each personally must be able to define success, and then based upon that definition of success, decide proactively how to allocate time and energy, resources to achieve the intended outcomes. This sounds, obvious, but when I ask organizations and teams, how are you starting your day, for example? Most men and women will say, I sit down at my desk and I open my email inbox and I get to work. Well, that's not being intentional. In fact, that's exactly the opposite of intentionality. Right? Your email inbox is somebody else's to-do list. Being intentional means starting the day with a plan, working on your most important projects and initiatives, the cognitively demanding work first. And then, once you've achieved what you need to achieve that day, then getting to the to-do list, right? Getting to the needs and requirements of others. That's what being intentional looks like. And that's why I call it a habit, a high-performance habit. There's a variety of practices that go into this, but it starts with just simply saying, I am going to get clear on where I am, where I want to go, and what I need to do to make it happen. The second high-performance habit, taking ownership. Taking ownership. This is a bit of a mindset shift for most organizations, for most men and women. What can I take responsibility for today? Leadership is not available to everybody. There's a certain number of SVP, VP, director roles, out there. In fact, and of course, there's only one CEO. There's only one president, right? There's only one person who gets that leadership title, right? But everybody can take ownership. Responsibilities is available to anybody that asks for it. So that's high performance habit number 2. Number 3, staying healthy. You cannot create healthy high performance in the workplace if you are not personally healthy. Leadership takes energy. Solving hard problems takes energy. And if you don't have enough energy at the start of any given day or at the end of any given day, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to do the hard work of creating healthy high performance over time. Staying healthy, and all of that entails exercise, sleep, diet, you name it. That is a key high performance habit. Number 4 is the ability to focus. The ability to focus. I mentioned a moment ago about being intentional, right? It's one thing, though, to have a plan and to allocate that time and energy to the plan. Another similarly valuable skill or habit is just simply be able to focus. to avoid distraction, to reduce, to eliminate distraction. Like, this is our response in many ways to the whirlwind. We know that there's going to be an incessant drumbeat of stuff that people want us or need us to do. That's what this comes down to, really understanding what matters most, understanding what matters less, and then allocating enough time to those things that move the needle. And last but not least, the fifth high performance habit, if we're going to take things personally, the areas where we need to start building our own skills and then help to build or invest in those of others, is to make it better. Now, what does that mean? It means being able to ask the question, what's working and what's not? And based upon our answers to those two questions, what am I going to do differently going forward? I know a lot, I'm sure, as a leader of a team, like you probably know a few folks on your organization who are really good at identifying things that are not good enough. But how good are you? How good are they at making things better? This is a high performance habit. This is a superpower. And if we're going to take it personally, we start with ourselves and say, how good am I at making things better? At asking what's working, what's not, and then changing my approach, my strategy, my thinking based upon that reflection. So the fourth secret of these top 1% leaders and teams is that they take performance personally and they build and invest in these skills that really differentiate the teams that win in a healthy and sustainable way over time, and the teams that get their butts kicked. May hit their goals every once in a while, but ultimately fall across the finish line as opposed to walk across the finish line ready and able to continue that journey, to do it again over the next 90 days, over the next year. So that is the fourth secret. Let me just recap these four secrets for you. So remember, we started off number one with balancing the equation. Top 1% organizations, they obsess about making sure that reality equals expectations. Number two, CEOs of top 1% teams, they put the A in team. There's a difference between a team of A players and an A team. An A team is an aligned team. Number three, these organizations make it easier. There's a hard way of running a business and there's an easier way of running a business. This is not rocket science. It's some subtle yet critical improvements to your operating system. It's all required to create an easier way to run your business, to do your work, and to create, healthier, higher performance over time. And last but not least, we just mentioned it, the top 1%, they take it personally. They take performance personally. They recognize that there's a limit to what the organization can do to drive the performance of those men and women that work for the organization. No perfect culture, no perfect product, no perfect company can overcome or outweigh the problems created by suboptimal personal performance habits. So they focus in and prioritize personal performance. So those are the four secrets of the top 1%. Which of these ideas, insights, or secrets would, if you were to implement them, have the biggest impact on your organization 90 days from now? What's the greatest opportunity for you, your team, your company? You have it? All right, well, let me just walk you through a very simple game plan. What I would recommend you to do if you've identified that there's some opportunity to close the gap between the organization you have or run today and the organization or team that you want to be running 90 days from now. Here's what it looks like. Number one, establish a common language. Right? Remember that root cause of misalignment is often just a lack of common language. Clarify and teach the organization strategy, terms, and best practices. You need to clarify. I know it seems so rudimentary, but you got to clarify. What is a goal? What are our KPIs? What is our vision? Right? This is essential knowledge for everyone in the organization. Number two, empower your team to clarify their personal core values and share them with their colleagues. Everybody's got personal core values. And oftentimes when the happiness equation, when there's misalignment there, it's often due to a values conflict. Our expectations differ because our values differ. So it's really important that we clarify values across the organization. Number three, create alignment. Speaking of clarity, it's time to clarify or simply reinforce the vision, the KPIs, and the goals for all teams across the organization. Right now, once people know what these words mean, now we got to really get clear on what is our vision, right? What are our KPIs? And again, just touching on KPIs for just a moment, most teams do not know with 100% confidence and clarity what their KPIs are. If you are the CEO or a senior leader in your organization, start there. Just simply start asking that question. What do you get paid to do? I promise you, you will be shocked at the number of people that don't really know what they're getting paid to do. And of course, how easy is that to fix, right? That is a very solvable problem. And then last but not least, you got to upgrade your personal operating system. We're going to change the organization. I hope you're going to change the organization. But the number one way to change your organization and the personal performance habits of the team, the people that work with and for you, is to start with yourself. Change your personal operating system. Upgrade your personal operating system. Think about those 5 habits that we just talked about and ask yourself, in which of these areas do I need to get better? Where can I get better? Chances are there's going to be an opportunity to improve in many of those areas if you're like leaders with whom I work. And again, the good news from my perspective is that none of these require an advanced degree to solve these challenges. It's just more about clarifying what specifically you want to do differently, how you want to change your behavior, and then just getting a little bit of coaching and accountability around that. And speaking of coaching and accountability, that's where I can help. This is what I do. I help organizations, what I call break through whatever is holding them back to become more of the organization that they want to become, to get closer to that role model organization, that top 1% organization. My coaching program is very simple and straightforward. It's designed to embrace the EASI operating system. It's incredibly efficient. It's an 8-week team training. We focus on these strategies of the top 1%. I teach these strategies of the top 1% to you and your team. But then critically, we start to embed these strategies in the way that you work. And that's why it's done over 8 weeks as opposed to 8 hours in a single day, because we want to start actually changing the behavior of your team. So the secret to success here is that it's not just training, right? Not just training on what this organization, what other companies do, but also providing coaching and accountability to help you and every member of your team start to change their behavior. That is the sign of a truly impactful coaching program. We do that, and ultimately what happens, again, doing it as a team, you're going to see massive improvement in communication, alignment, and trust, right? That's the real foundation of what we do together over that 8-week time frame. But then, of course, it's designed to drive performance. At the end of the day, that's how we justify the investment in this type of work. Is that does the business get better? Are we healthier? Are we higher performing? If we can do that, we blow any kind of ROI expectations out of the water, and that's why we focus on the most important challenges and opportunities facing the team as part of, we just embed that right into the 8-week training. Now, if that sounds interesting, I hope it does, right? Just simply click that link beneath this training to schedule time to talk. This will take you right to my calendar, and you can find some time, and we'll spend, 45 minutes or so, just kind of talking through where your organization is, getting some of your feedback and reactions to the training that we've covered, what resonated most with you, and then talking more specifically about how to apply, or how this breakthrough training might apply to your organization, might help you and your team get to your next level of performance and success. All right, so just click that button and that will take you there. Now, while I'd love to talk to everybody who's gone through this training, especially if you've enjoyed it, my time is limited. So please only schedule a call if you meet sort of the following criteria. Number one, that you run a business or lead a team. That's who I work with. That's my area of expertise. Please only schedule a call if you run a business or lead a team. That business has to have at least $5 million in annual revenue or 20 plus employees. It's not that smaller businesses can't benefit from this work. They absolutely can. But it really is for companies that are just a little bit beyond initial startup phase. 3, you are coachable, that you're values driven, and that you're committed to building a great team. I know that this sounds trite, but if you don't want to get to your next level, you don't really, really want to get to the next level, to build a team, to build an organization that other organizations, other leaders look at and say, wow, they've done something special there. If you don't really want that, please don't set up a call, because you're going to get everything I've got in that call. And, it's all designed for, that work is designed. This gift is designed for people who really want to take their organization to the next level. And when I say values driven, not just because you want to make, gobs and gobs of money, but also because you recognize the inherent importance of a great organization, a great company to the communities that they're a part of, right? To the families that they serve, right? This is more than just building a cash generating machine. It's about creating massive positive impact in the world. At least it is for me. And if you buy into that, if you embrace that as well, then this will be a great fit. If not, no problem. But I'm probably not the right coach for you. Again, if that's you, click the button below this video and schedule time to talk. Now, as you go through that scheduling process, let me just tell you a couple of quick stories about clients with whom I've worked, just to give you a better understanding of the work that I do. The first, this is Travis Warren. He's a SVP at a company called Blackbaud. Blackbaud is a big publicly traded software and technology company. Travis reached out to me because he recognized the importance of alignment. And we worked with his senior leadership team and ultimately created a great amount of efficiency for their organization. In addition, just greater health and trust, right? We got people, spending more time doing the work that mattered most, being more intentional, and ultimately collaborating and innovating much more effectively. So that's exactly the kind, and Travis is exactly the kind of leader that I love working with, right? Smart, driven, values focused, and recognizes that the importance that he has in his role of creating not just a great team, right, but a great place where people can come to work, to fill their buckets, to leave the job with more energy, more enthusiasm, and an ability to go serve the people outside of work as well. In addition, there's Jeff DeVood, right? Jeff runs a privately held company just outside of Richmond, Virginia. He's got about 1,000 families counting on him and the employees across his organization. And Jeff's just got so much energy and enthusiasm, so much creativity. And what we were able to do is to take that energy and enthusiasm and start to operationalize it, right? To build an operating system that allowed everybody to thrive, to create the clarity and the structure, the intentionality that this organization was looking for to kind of help it get to its next level of success, right? And as Jeff writes here, they're operating faster and more efficiently than ever before, despite constant market challenges. So Travis, Jeff, just two examples of leaders that have used my breakthrough coaching program to help their team develop executive level leadership skills, to align the team on a common approach to strategy setting and execution, and finally to establish a set of high performance habits across the organization. If you think that would be helpful to you, again, just click the button below to schedule time to speak with me. We can customize this training, this program for small teams. We can also, and we often do this training across the entire organization. It's designed to scale very, very easily and effortlessly so that everybody in the organization is able to develop these high performance habits, is able to better articulate and define what these words mean, and to ultimately get and maintain the alignment you need, right, as leader in order to get your team to the next level of success. I hope you've enjoyed this call. I have certainly enjoyed doing it. And I want to wrap up with just the story of Sanjay. Talk about helping individual team members. Sanjay is the CTO of a company called Bridgetree. Breakthrough really changed Sanjay's life. And as you can read here, right, he was just dealing with so much overwhelm, working 80 to 90 hours a week, still feeling like it was behind. And kind of like Jonathan Frostick, who we talked about before, his physical and mental health were failing. He was aware of that. But when we started to bring some of the structure and discipline, the principles and practices of Breakthrough to his life, all of a sudden everything changed for Sanjay. Right? He started getting everything done in 40 hours a week, literally cutting 40 hours a week off his work week, right? Which again created the time and space he needed to further invest in his health and relationships. And ultimately, it's just, I couldn't be more proud of Sanjay for the work that he's done, right? Everything that, his success is his success. We were just able to help guide or support him on that journey. But that's really what this is all about. Great, healthy, high-performing organizations are just an amalgamation of great, healthy, high-performing individuals working together towards a common cause. And so that's why what you'll find is that the breakthrough training is not just about world-class, strategy execution. It's also going to hit you at the personal level. It's going to make you a better professional, but it's also going to make you a better husband and wife, a better mom, better dad, better sibling, better community member. That's the ambition here. So again, if that sounds like something you're interested in, please click the button beneath this video, schedule time to talk. And if you have any other questions, right, anything that didn't get covered, shoot me an email. I'm at ben@sandsleadership.com. Even if you just want to tell me what you thought of this training, reactions or thoughts related to this training, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your time and energy today. I look forward to talking with you again soon.